Hello, everybody. So I'm here to talk about somewhat of what the Kendricks restructure could potentially mean about all of these Kyle Rudolph, trade rumors of such, and basically if it makes him safe or not safe. Because obviously he was subject to some of these trade rumors, more so after Irv Smith was drafted in the second round by Minnesota, and they would save $7.625 million to cut or trade Kyle Rudolph. So the thing that really didn't help was not having enough cap space to sign all of their draft picks. Mainly Garrett Bradbury, kind of one of the key guy from the draft, kind of important kind of guy. And instead of anything happening with Kyle Rudolph, Eric Kendricks decided he'd be a nice guy and restructure his contract to free up the extra cash. And as of right now, a lot of people think, oh, they've done the impossible. They have gotten everybody under contract. Well, I guess except for Richardson, but we'll just ignore that one. But you have everyone under contract. A lot of people said, oh, that can't be done. You have too many people under here that you're going to have to lose a few of them. And as of right now, they're all under contract. But does that mean Rudolph's out of the woods? I don't think it necessarily does mean he's out of the woods yet. And I have my reasons, mainly two big ones. If there is a season ending injury on the roster to a player during the season, injuries happen, they don't really have enough cap space to go and sign, maybe not necessarily a replacement, depending on who the player is, but mostly like just added depth, because now your depth becomes your starters, and then you don't really have people behind them all the time. So if it's a position where you're kind of thin at already, you're gonna have to go sign somebody. As of right now, if that were to happen, they can't do that, at least, or any in season signings really, because they only have about $660,000 in cap space per Chris Thomason. So depending how much you trust that guy. And it'd just be very difficult to go throughout a year and not have the ability to sign anybody, really. Like, even last year, like when you guys say, well, if some of you go off saying, well, how important are these guys anyway? Aldrick Robinson last year, in season signing, came in, he caught 5 touchdowns from Kirk Cousins. He, for the most part, kind of replaced Treadwell towards the end. And even though he's not back with the team, don't know if I would expect him back because of this money thing. And I think the hope is Dylan Mitchell there could potentially just replace younger kind of guy. He's not 31. So that could be the hope. I don't know with that one. But my point is, these in-season signings sometimes help, whether that's due to injury or not. And another one last year was Dan Bailey. I know that one's kind of a double-edged sword though, because Dan Bailey kicked better for us than Daniel Carlson kicked for us. But then Carlson goes on with the Raiders, and then he kicks better than what Dan Bailey did. It's a sad story, but it's just, and due to that top 51 rule, for those who don't know, during the offseason, only the top 51 contracts count against the salary cap. So cutting all these players at the end of the preseason doesn't really help, because this team has a lot of big money contracts. So, cutting all of those other guys of the 90-man roster doesn't affect anything, really. So it doesn't free up money. I don't know how much. I guess depending on the contract, it could count against it. But my point is that doesn't help. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is a little different, because we also know Minnesota likes to kind of take care of their guys a year early. And so let's say they do want to extend a player in their contract year. They have a decent number of players to actually choose from this. I don't know if people know that, but which they actually do kind of extend from these starters or promising future kind of guys to these key role players, which obviously include Trey Wayne, Mackenzie Alexander, Anthony Harris. Stephen Weatherly's one. A lot of people are getting high on him, so keeping him might be a slight priority. And then you also have two of the main key role players, I think, on this team in David Morgan and Jaron Kearse. And Jaron Kearse, with the move to linebacker, could become a more crucial part of the defense, not necessarily just, oh, no, he's just a good special teams guy. All of a sudden, he's part of the defense. So it would be hard to kind of extend some of these guys without that wiggle room on the cap for this year, or at least to do it a year early. And this is kind of the concern I have with not getting rid of Rudolph, because I think you kind of pigeon yourself into we have to stay healthy. Like I know every team says they have to stay healthy. This team literally has to stay healthy, though, because like I said, they can't really sign people. And I do want to say I don't hate Rudolph before I state this, but I do think he's kind of an outdated player at the position. Because, well, he's had multiple injuries, so that's hurt athleticism. And he kind of plays as this safety blanket role, which a lot of offense these days, like a lot of these really good ones, almost use the running back as the safety valve option. Like, that's a bigger part of it as opposed to using a big tight end who's just got this big catch radius, maybe doesn't do much else, but he's got very good hands and he can just kind of secure it down. And when you have nothing else, your tight end is there for you. And he was drafted in 2011, where it's kind of the day where everything changed. Like that following season, when we started seeing all of these, Gronkowski's and Jimmy Graham's pop up, and then future on and on to what we are now, whether that's, Travis Kelce or Jordan Reed or, just all of these guys. And these are now like receivers. They aren't tight ends. Like, they're used as receivers. So Rudolph doesn't have that kind of skill set, though. Irv Smith kind of does. Irv Smith kind of fits what offenses do these days and what works now, as opposed to Rudolph is what works then. So I don't hate Rudolph. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he plays his role really well. I just don't think his role is as valued as it used to be. Because if you look at his contract, I remember when they first signed him, I thought it was a little too rich for me, even. Because, once again, I didn't think he did enough. He doesn't really block well. David Morgan comes in and blocks when we need to run the ball, like in those crucial third and short, fourth and short, short goal kind of situations. David Morgan's the one that usually comes in to do that. And then it's really not that hard to see if Irv Smith could take over a good number of Rudolph's snaps just because of what he brings to the table, which is almost Jordan Reed-esque. So is it impossible to think that by, we're roughly halfway through the season or more than halfway, and they're starting to lean towards Irv Smith just because of what he can do to a defense? He can just stress him vertically. You can line him out wide. He's still a better blocker than Rudolph, although a smaller guy than Rudolph. And he's just more versatile. So it's not impossible to think he starts to steal away some of these snaps from Kyle Rudolph anyway. So that's just what I think. Like, I don't hate Rudolph as a player. I just think it's changed literally right when he's drafted, and he's not bad at his role, so that kind of left this weird thing going on. But I don't hate him as a player. Just think he's kind of outdated. And I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Whether I'm, completely off about this. Yeah, comments are there for that. Anyway, till next time, I bid y'all adieu.